Welcome, everybody. So tonight is, what is this now? Our fifth lesson, second to last lesson in the Conchas y Café series. Tonight's handout is currently uploading to the chat section of the Zoom for those of you that are interested in downloading it off of the Zoom chat here. Otherwise, those of you fully enrolled in the class are able to download it off of the Google Classroom as well. For anybody watching on the live stream, thank you for joining us also. And tonight, I'm not going to be leading the lesson. Instead, we have our master teaching artist, Abraham Jaramillo, bringing you another technical session here on photography. Uh, so, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. You can obviously use the chat, and I'll be helping to answer questions in the chat, whether that be on Instagram, on any of the other live streams that we have going on, or obviously on Zoom. And I believe the handout finished uploading. So again, you can always follow along on the handout or just watch on your screen as Abraham projects the handout that he's covering. So with that, I will pass on the mic to Abraham. And there you go.
Good night, everybody. Welcome to another Conchas session. And today, again, as always, we're going to be doing English and Spanish, so bear with us. I always try to do one and one. And if I get to say something in English or in Spanish, let me know, because sometimes I just rush to things and I forget. Okay, let me put my chat on the side of the screen. And again, today we have Antonius Benjamin. That's a photo from him. And I want to hear what you guys think about this photo. Give me your thoughts. Just open the mic and let me hear what you guys think about this image.
It's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And what does it tell you? What does it invoke to you?
You know, it reminds me of the first pictures that were taken by the horse that was running.
Yes.
It reminds me of that.
Yes, I can see why. It just, instead of being one, many photos of it, it's one in all of those, right? Like together. Erika says, love the movement. And Caroline said slow shutter. There you go. Somebody's getting ahead of this. I like it. I like it. Okay. And let me hear. Roots, I haven't heard from you. Let me hear what you think.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I agree with, like, I'm not sure who was the one who said about the movement, and um I just think it looks beautiful. Like the way that it's flowing, it makes me think of water.
Mhm.
But it also catches, like, you could also see like the different positions of that she takes, like, while she's doing this movement. I see the
Right.
spiral too, like next to her head, which, like, for me it means like I always think of the Fibonacci sequence. So
Oh,
yeah, but that's all I want to share.
thank you.
Thank you.
I like that you say flow of water because as you can see, a river, it's never like frozen in time. It's always moving around, right? It's so you always see the river moving, right? It has this motion. So it's not stuck in time, right? So, and we have slow shutter. Then we have somebody posted, Casey says Edward Moybridge took the horse photo. Thank you. And to continue, I mean, for me, I chose this photo because it definitely speaks of motion and time and how does it affect an image? What does it tell you that we cannot see in one single like regular image, right? This is a long exposure. So hold on, we have much this is the faded movement can be the movement of the clear picture of a person or highlighting the person as leader. Interesting. But definitely, yeah, it's in focus. Like that, we have some of that motion, but it's still we have the dancer still being able to see her in detail, right? Okay, and so with that, we're going to start today's class. So I want to first catch a quick review because I know maybe of you might not have remembered everything we have covered. So just a quick reminder what aperture is. Aperture, if you want to remember what it is, always think of your eyes, like the iris of pupils, how your eyes work. They have this big opening and a small opening to let light in, right? So that kind of creates the f-stops, which is the smaller the f-stop, it's the more light. I mean, the number that says f1.4, it's letting more light in, but it doesn't let too much of the image in focus, right? And the smaller the hole is, then the bigger the number of the aperture is, right? And less light. Less light also helps you when you have a small aperture, it gives you more range of depth of field, right? And another thing that I learned on the week is like why phones don't have too much of this aperture going on. It's because the sensor are way smaller. So the hole, it's already small. So it's not too much you can play with that. And also that's why they also good at depth of field. Phones are really good at depth of field. That's why you can focus like macro and stuff like that. You have more range of focus than when you have a bigger sensor. It's a little harder to get a depth of field, right? So that's another thing that I learned today. So that's first, we have aperture, and then we cover also ISO, which is basically the way to remember is the film sensitivity. In this case is how the sensors work, right? Sensibilidad de película, como las cámaras antiguas servían, ¿verdad? Con la tipo de película, que era más sensitiva o menos sensitiva a la luz. So you can see ISO 100 to 2000 something, right? And it gives you more light, but it also creates grain or noise. When you talk about digital, you just call it noise. But remember, if you're able to get less light, you get a better, cleaner image. But if you are pushing the sensor, it's going to create this distortion, like a little bit of a noise, right? So that's for film sensitivity, ISO. That's the two things that we have covered previously. And before we move on, any questions? ¿Alguna pregunta? Okay, I'm gonna take the silence as no questions. Okay, good. We're solid, I guess. So today we're going to the next step of photography. Time. We're gonna cover time. Ahora vamos a cubrir tiempo. So how we take time in consideration in photos. ¿Cómo agarramos tiempo en consideración a las fotos? So we use shutter speed. And to talk about what shutter speed is the speed at which the shutter of the camera closes. A fast shutter speed creates a shutter exposure. Exposure is how much time the camera is going to let the light in, right? The amount of light the camera takes in, and the slow the shutter speed gives the photographer longer exposure. Examples, 1 second, 2 seconds. And as you can see here, it's how it works. This is the sensor of a camera. See, here is open, abierta, aquí está abierta, and here is close. So what the shutter speed is how fast it does the shutting of the curtain. It's different type of curtains depending on the camera, but mostly it works the same way. How much time is going to let it open? How much time is going to let that happen, right? So en español, okay. La velocidad de las, velocidad a la que cierra el obturador de la cámara, una velocidad obturación rápida, crea una exposición más corta. La calidad de la luz que capta la cámara y una velocidad de obturación lenta le da al fotógrafo una exposición más larga. Ejemplos, 1 segundo, la mitad de 1 segundo, 1/8 de segundo, 1/800 de segundo. So, como les decía, aquí se ve como una cámara tiene el sensor abierto y cerrado. So, la obturación es qué rápido la abrir y cerrar. So, any questions so far? I'm going to continue and it's going to give more details, but still, want to make sure everybody gets this. ¿Alguien tiene preguntas hasta ahora? Okay. No? Okay. So, with that, it gives us all the points that we have covered. So, exposure triangle, ese es el triángulo de exposición. Usando las cosas que ya hemos cubierto, tenemos apertura, ISO, y shutter speed. All these are going to be your tools to get the right light in, right? So each one has its own pros and cons, right? For example, here you have a big opening, which is the aperture. You're not going to have too much of the focusing, right? But you're going to let a lot of light in. But let's say you want a lot of focus in, right? You want a tiny hole, right? Which gives a a maximum, like a less light in, but it gives you more depth of field. So it gives you everything more sharp. That means less light. And the way you fix that, it's like a balance, right? You get more ISO, so you increase the sensitivity of your camera, or you fix the shutter speed. You let more light in, so you let the camera take more light to the time that's going to be open, right? So that's going to help you, right? Again, ISO, same thing. You have a huge ISO because somehow you want a grainy photo, something that looks more not old school, I guess. You're going to have to let a lot of light in because you have a high ISO. So your camera is taking a lot of the light. The sensor is taking a lot of the light, right? So by doing the aperture, making it smaller, you're going to fix that and balance things up, or make it the camera take a faster speed. Like the faster you shoot, the less light is going to go inside the camera, right? So that way you balance the things. Okay. ¿Alguna pregunta? Any questions? So these are the things we have covered: aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. We're going to continue more on shutter speed, but just want to make sure everybody's following. ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Okay. There you go. So to show you what it does, let's take our phones out. Para mostrar lo que hace, saquemos nuestros teléfonos. Previously, we have used my fancy camera to show you things. So this time I wanted to switch things up and be able to show you with the phone, especially because this phone, the phone that I use, this is not my phone, but somebody let me use their phone because I noticed that they have the option of shutter speed, which is like, oh, mine doesn't. So mi teléfono tiene esa opción, pero este teléfono sí. O sea que hay teléfonos que sí tienen esa opción de shutter speed. And let's go into it. So as you open your phone, it's going to give you this, right? You put it in photograph mode, right? Lo ponen en la formato o el app del teléfono de las fotos. Lo abren y así es como se ven. So you go for photo, right? This is what it's telling you. Then after that, you go into more. It gives you, it depends on the phone. Some phones have different names to things. Algunos teléfonos tienen otros nombres, pero de ahí se van a more. And once you're in more, you're going to press on Pro. You see here? Pro. It has many other features, but most of them are for video or for other things. But for this, go for Pro. So para esto va en el modo Pro, porque los demás modos hacen otras cosas, pero eso lo vamos a discutir ahorita. Okay, and this is how it looks like, right? It has the things we have covered as well, right? It tells you what kind of lens you want to use. It has ultra wide angle here, wide angle, telephoto, and super telephoto. These phones, I'm jealous. So este teléfono tiene, como pueden ver, les enseña también el tipo de lente que puedes usar. Está en ultra wide angle, telephoto y super telephoto. Y aquí estamos usando wide angle, okay? And as you can see, we have two things that we can use in this phone. So again, phones don't have, like, well, the ones that I have seen don't have aperture. So that's the thing we're missing for the triangle for this. But we have ISO here. It's a 10. And we have speed, which is 350th of a second. That's what it's telling you. It's super fast, right? So, como les decía, tiene aquí las cosas que las que estamos hablando del triángulo de exposición, el triángulo de exposición, excepto por la apertura, porque los teléfonos casi no tienen eso. Pero aquí está el ISO, que está a 10, y tenemos el shutter speed, que está a 350. Okay? So, as you can see, this setting, it's a little low on the light. It looks a little dark. So it's kind of, but it's still on the dark, especially because we're in the shadows. But, so we decided to change. So está un poquito oscuro. So de ahí lo cambiamos a, como se pueden dar cuenta, estaba aquí a 10. So we move this to 50. It's letting more light in, but because we also changed the speed. So the speed we changed to half of it, right? This is 350, and this is 125 of a second. So that's what it's doing, right? So we have the speed here. And what this is giving us, this type of setting is giving us this. So here I am doing some ninja moves. Aquí estoy haciendo unos movimientos ninja. Y como se pueden dar cuenta, está congelada la foto. So as you can see, it's frozen in time, right? So it's really fast shutter. So this is 125th of a second, right? So this is how most of the things on phones try to shoot at, because most of the things that the phone's trying to fix is the ISO. But most of the photos they're gonna try to take are gonna be at this speed. It's the speed width, kind of works the best, okay? So normalmente los teléfonos van a intentar tomar este tipo de fotos que son congeladas para que si alguien se mueve no haya problema y lo puedan ver. So somebody moves, you're able to see them in the photo. So that's why they try to take this type of speed, right? And again, because the next thing I'm gonna show you, this photo, we took it during the day. So we tried to do a long exposure the same day, but it's too much light. So fuimos, en el parque estamos intentando tomar esto, pero con una exposición alargada. Y no se puede porque deja mucha luz en la cámara. So because it's too much light, we try to do this photo shoot at night to show you the rest of the technique, okay? So here we are at night, do the same thing. We went to pro mode, and this time we start with this, which is, again, we're still in wide angle, the type of lens. And then 160 ISO, which is still low. And this time we have 1 second. So well, remember, that was 125th of a second. So it's like a fraction of a second, right? It's really fast. And this is an entire second, right? And so we ended up with this photo. So again, because we're letting the light of the camera, of the outside, more time into the sensor, it's allowing us to record time, which is a second. If you think about it, it's 1 second of motion. And this is what happened here. That is what happened. But here is probably 8 seconds. If you think about how many steps did the dancer did, this is like 8 seconds or something like that, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and probably stood a little longer in the pose, so the final pose, to be able to record it without moving too much, right? So he did the whole steps and then stay there. So that's how you end up with hair like that, okay? Any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta más? Como les estaba diciendo, los settings, so como les decía, estos son los settings en los que llevamos esta foto, que es exposición prolongada, que da 1 segundo. So, graba 1 segundo de movimiento. Y así es como tomamos la foto que les acabo de enseñar de la bailarina. Probablemente es más tiempo, como 8 segundos. So, esto es lo que hace cuando puedes utilizar shutter speed. So again, this is shutter speed, right? Any questions? ¿Alguna pregunta? How shutter speed works? No? Okay.
So it's just one snapshot, one picture. It's not like a collection of more than one picture.
No, exactly. Because as you saw, like Julie said, the photo of the horse is multiple photos. And how you create the motion, it's by taking a video. So it's frame by frame, it gives you that. So all the horses that you saw, they're actually frozen in time. And then they collect them to make a video that's moving. But here it's just one photo, and it don't light. I mean, it's light that's being recorded on the sensor. So the more you let it open, all that motion that you did through the open and shutting of the camera is going to record that motion. As you can see, the trees and the grass weren't moving that much. So that's why they are in focus, right? Except for my hands. And I tried to be steady so I wouldn't be moving. So my hands are the only thing that are moving, and it's recording the movement in 1 second, right? So that's time, how you affect things in time in a camera. Okay. ¿Alguna pregunta más, Neri?
That's it. That was a pretty cool explanation.
Okay. And just to give you a little more insight of how that works, here is a little showing you how it works. So again, this is, as you can see, 125th of a second is where the time starts freezing. And it starts, you can go faster. I mean, you can make it faster. And so you can freeze even water falling or things fast that are moving faster than me kicking. And so always have that in mind. 125th is when actually things are going to start be freezing in time. And then the closer you go to a second, it's going to start moving. You're going to start recording more of the time. And you can see 1/4 of a second, then a second. You can go 30 seconds, right? You can go really long onto exposure. The only thing is you have to remember when you're using this much time, if you have your hand on your camera, if you have too much time, the shutter open, it's gonna start moving. So you're moving your hand, it's gonna make everything shake on the photo, right? So that's why we left the camera standing on a light pole or something. So we were able to take a second, right? Without somebody moving, right? ¿Alguna pregunta más? Again, the more, the faster
really
you
quick.
shoot, the darker the image, and the the slower you shoot, the more light you let in, okay? And the more motion blur. Okay. Luis, you said something?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that someone in the chat asked,
No, sorry.
or better, said they hope they could find these settings in their iPhone. Unfortunately, the native camera app on the iPhone itself doesn't allow for the changing of ISO or shutter speed that I've been able to find myself.
Mhm.
But on the App Store for the iPhone specifically, you can find apps that do allow for long exposures. So you just search in the App Store for something that's more like pro photography. Uh, you could probably search for that key term, pro photography, and you'll find apps that do give you much more control.
Luis, were you able to find some of those? So maybe we can put in the class.
I'll do some research to see which ones are, more legit and probably won't break
Oh,
your.
I see.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do know that there are apps that exist for the iPhone that you can download from the App Store that allow you to do long exposures.
Mhm.
Specifically, I used to use one called Long Exposure. That was the name of the app, and it worked pretty good. But that was back when I had an iPhone 3GS.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if that app still works now.
Yeah.
I'd have to see if there's newer versions of it.
And again, don't worry. Like, for example, my phone doesn't have that, and I haven't find a way to do long exposure on my phone, but some phones have. But still, we have some things you can do with this, thinking of time. But it will be fine if you go and find something that you can do with that. Like, it's always a way to find something that's able to work with either your phone or a camera. So, okay. Any questions on this one so far? More questions? Okay. So I hear silence. That's my cue to continue. Okay. So with that being said, we're talking about motion, how your hand is gonna move. So this is a couple of things that you can do. So your camera or your phone don't move. You use a tripod. La opción de un tripié o no tripoide, no sé cómo se llama en español, no me sale muy bien. Tripoide. Tripode. So así es como pueden hacer que su cámara tome las fotos con una larga exposición sin que se mueva. So again, always remember to look for things that are not going to damage your camera or your phone. So make sure it's not that heavy or it's going to fall or it's windy. Sometimes it's windy. So these small ones are good when you want to do low shoots, like low on the ground, but they don't hold too well like long lenses. So just remember to check before you let it. Hands free. Okay, this is another one. Aquí hay otro. This is another type of, I guess, tripod, if you think about it. Or my favorite, this is how I'm taking the class right now. I have a couple of books. My camera is laying on the books, and then a controller of the PlayStation. That's how I give it the angle. So that's how I'm shooting today. So books, this thing, it's always different things. These ones, like a monopod. These ones are good if you're gonna be moving a lot, but if you wanna do long exposures, you usually are taking a timer or leaving your the timer 1, 2, 3, and then you go and position yourself. So this one you cannot let standing by itself. This is more like you have to be with the camera the whole time. So that again, it's always useful to have a backpack or a bag that you can set up your camera, just the angle to play around with. Se puede usar una bolsa para acomodar su cámara. Oh, here's a couple tips for phones. And this was really genius. I found them like, ooh, I want to try those. So it's always you can find a way to shoot, right? So this way your camera is not going to be moving because for a second, my rule of thumb is after 60th of a second, your hand's going to be shaking a little bit. So after 60th of a second, it's a little harder to keep your camera not shaking. Especially if you use long lenses, then it's more harder to keep your hand steady.
I want to do a quick shout out to
Yeah.
Casey. Thank you, Casey, for looking up the app Slow Shutter Cam. That is actually the one that I used to use, and if it's still on the App Store now, then that means it's been updated and is still working for current model iPhones. So
there you go, guys.
Yeah.
Try it. Let us know. Give us the review.
Exactly.
I would like to know. Not that I have an iPhone, but I like to know if it works or not.
I bet you that there's probably also a version of that for Android phones that don't have the
Yeah.
ability to change shutter speed and all of that.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Cool stuff. Thank you, Casey. And with that being said, I'm gonna require now, because I'm talking too much and I'm gonna continue talking later. I'm gonna need your help, guys. I need somebody to read this one. I'm gonna need somebody to read in Spanish. And here we go. I need somebody to read this, and let me know if you need it. Actually, I should make it a little bigger. Who is up for it before I start choosing people or victims?
I can read it if you want to.
Okay, excellent. I don't know who said it, but I'm gonna say
San
thank you.
Juanita, me encanta el
San Juanita.
español.
Oh, perfecto. Le va a encantar este.
¿Empiezo?
Sí, por favor.
Ok. El reloj de pared. Perdón, ya empezó. Es el título, ¿no?
Sí, no, ese es el comienzo de la canción.
Ah, oh, es canción. ¿La canto
Ah.
entonces? Ah, la canto.
Si quiere, bueno, no le va a dejar. Luis,
No la
comienza la
conozco.
guitarra.
Ah. Pero yo nomás sé corridos. Ah. El reloj
Dele.
de pared anunciando las 6:23. El pasado con sed y el presente es un atleta sin pies. Ya son las 6:43 y el cadáver del minuto que pasó me dice, así se vive aquí, te guste o no. Y la nostalgia pone casa en mi cabeza y dan las 6:50. ¿Quién te dijo que yo era el sueño que soñaste una vez? ¿Quién dijo que tú voltearías mi futuro al revés? Ya son las 7:16 y el cadáver del minuto que pasó me dice, tu estrategia te arruinó. No queda más que ir aprendiendo a vivir solo si te quedan agallas. La casa no es otra cosa que un cementerio de historias, enterradas en fosas que algunos llaman memorias. Minutos, ¿cómo sale la herida? Se me pasa la vida gastando el reloj. Minutos son la morgue del tiempo. Cadáveres de momentos que no vuelven jamás. No hay reloj que dé vuelta hacia atrás. ¿Cómo duele gastar el instante en el que tú ya no estás? ¿Cómo cuesta luchar con las cosas que no vuelven más? Ya son las 9:23 y el cadáver del minuto que pasó se burla de mis ganas de besar la foto que dejaste puesta en el buró. Mi soledad es tu venganza. El Ministerio del Tiempo puso sede en mi almohada. Ahí te encuentro a momentos, aunque no sirve de nada. Minutos, ¿cómo sale la herida? Se me pasa la vida gastando el reloj. Minutos son la morgue del tiempo, cadáveres de momentos que no vuelven jamás. No hay reloj que dé vuelta hacia atrás. Minutos que se burlan de mí, minutos como furia del mar, minutos pasajeros de un tren que no va a ningún lugar, minutos como lluvia de sal, minutos como fuego en la piel, minutos forasteros que vienen y se van sin decir, minutos que me duelen sin ti, minutos que no pagan pensión, minutos que al morir formarán el batallón del ayer, minutos que se roban la luz, minutos que me oxidan la fe, Minutos inquilinos del tiempo mientras puedan durar. Minutos que disfrutan morir. Minutos que no tienen lugar. Minutos que se estrellan en mí son kamikazes de Dios. Ricardo Arjona.
Thank you very much. Again,
Con
this is a
razón se
song
le
by
oye.
Ricardo Arjona called Minutos, Minutes. And here we
Mm.
have the version in English. So again, either I choose a victim or a victim comes forward.
I will be the victim.
Thank you, victim. Woo! We have a victim. Like it. Thank you very much. And whenever you are ready.
Okay. The wall clock announcing 6:23. The thirsty past and the present is an athlete without feet. It's already 6:43 and the corpse of the minute that passed. He tells me, this is how you live here, whether you like it or not. And nostalgia sets home in my head, and it's 6:50. Who told you that I was the dream that you once dreamed? Who said that you would turn my future upside down? It's already 7:16 and the corpse of the minute that passed. He tells me, your strategy ruined you. There is nothing left but to learn to live alone. If you have any guts left, the house is nothing else. What a cemetery of stories, buried in pits that some call memories. Minutes, how does the wound come out? Life passes me by, wearing out the clock. Minutes that are the morgue of time, corpses of moments that never come back. There is no clock that turns back. How it hurts to spend the moment in which you are no longer here. How hard it is to fight with the things that don't come back again. It's already 9:23 and the corpse of the minute that passed. He makes fun of my desire to kiss. The photo you left on the bureau. My loneliness is your revenge. The ministry of time set up venue on my pillow. There I find you at moments, although it is of no use. Minutes, how does the wound come out? Life passes me by, wearing out the clock. Minutes they are the morgue of time, corpse of moments that never come back. There is no clock that turns back, minutes that make fun of me, minutes like the fury of the sea, minutes passengers of a train that goes nowhere, minutes like a rain of salt, minutes like fire on the skin, minutes strangers that come and go without saying, minutes that hurt me without you, minutes that do not pay pension, minutes that when dying will form yesterday's battalion, minutes that steal the light, minutes that rust my faith, minutes tenants of time while they can laugh, minutes that enjoy dying, minutes that have no place, minutes that crash into me are God's kamikazes. Minutes. Canción by Ricardo Arjona.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the readers. I know this one was a long one, but again, it's one of the songs that I really like and has a lot of meaning. So, with that being said, let me hear your thoughts on this song. Spanish version, English version, they're both the same. I think they translated pretty well both. Oh, somebody says amazing. I don't know who's Julie.
I think it takes like it really captures the essence of like how time is so slow when you're going through something like here what I understand is like he's missing someone, and so like every minute is like it's like a dread because it's like adding more time without the person. Like just the way he like is so poetic. I don't really know who this is, but now I have to go look him up.
Oh yeah, you should. He has great songs, and I like the way he writes. It's really poetic. He always has good ways of depicting things in a different way. So Always check him out.
Yeah.
Ricardo Arjona.
Very beautiful, very deep. I really like this poem or this song.
Mm-hmm.
This
Luis,
is a
what are your thoughts
song?
on this one? Or hold on,
This is
do we have
this is a
somebody?
song?
Yeah, this is a song.
Oh wow. Are you gonna play it, the song, or
No, for copyright purposes, but still,
Mm.
you can Google it. It's the name. It's
Yeah, it was-
Minutes by
yeah.
Ricardo Arjona. At your own time, you can
Yeah.
check it out.
Unfortunately, the YouTube algorithm would kick us off
Mm.
if we played it.
But you
But
can always sing it, Julie. Luis, what are your thoughts on these ones? I know.
well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I definitely am a fan of the song, the lyrics. Ricardo Arjona is also a very, very well-known artist in Latin American music. So it is cool to see, just like the translation was actually pretty good. There were some small tweaks that I did actually on the handout. So if you download the handout that I posted to the class, you'll see a slightly more accurate translation. But that said, I mean, the song itself is a beautiful song, and it does a really good job of kind of representing the passage of time. So if you think of it as if it were a poem, the song is not only showing you that time is passing, but it's showing you how time is passing and impacting the subject of the song or the speaker of the song. So it's very well done, very well articulated, and I think if you treat it as if it was a poem, um, you'll definitely get a lot of really good techniques, especially the repetitions, since time is in a lot of ways a repetition of itself. So very cool. And yes,
Sorry, I'm muting. Oh, sorry, Casey.
All right, I'm gonna try to say what I'm thinking, but the writer I see is taking many opportunities or many chances to express this thing. It's not just one, one thing and then that's it. Then he stops, and then as all of these different ways of expressing this feeling or how they feel, it keeps adding up, and it makes it so that you realize that what, it's all these things. So you get a sense of how complex it is, and how you can't just necessarily get it by just saying one thing, that it's all of those things together. That's what
Yes.
I was thinking.
Thank you. I think definitely it's an exploration of what the meaning of time is, especially for this individual who's speaking for the song, right? Or who's singing or who's thinking. Because it's not a really flattering way of looking at time if you think about it, right? It's a way of looking at time, but time that kills, time that hurts, right? It's a type of time that's not something that you cherish too much. It's more something of trying to be in the moment that it's not going to happen anymore. It's already gone, but you're still living every second thinking of that moment. That's what time is hurtful in this case, right? Time is, it's telling you the things that are not there. You cannot go back in time. That's the part of time that sucks for this individual. He wishes he could be with the person he loves at that instance, but he's not letting it go. He's trying to keep time in that moment, but every time you can see that it's not gonna stop. Even the song, it's saying that the time is passing all the time. It's like it's this time, that time, and the other time, and every time he's thinking of time, it hurts more because again, he's trying to be back there. He's not trying to be in the moment. So that's the thing that hurts. And Carolyn says time is all the perspective and doesn't really exist. But in this 3D world, good times flash before our eyes, and the sad times take forever to get through. There you go. Nice, Carolyn. Somebody's already thinking in time. Nice. Any other thoughts before we move on? Because we have more things. Okay.
I just want to say, what I really love about it is that he's telling us, like he's talking to us which I think that's sort of like why it's a song. So it really, my other teacher always is telling us to like talk, write like we talk. And so he's telling us what's going on in his mind, how he feels. And I really feel it. Like I can feel his pain. And I just love it. It's the most amazing poem.
Yeah, it's like Casey said, it's just the one thing that repeats all the time. The stickiness all the time is hurtful. It just goes into explaining the different ways of telling you how these seconds are passing, but in different ways, all of them, which is pretty good. It's like a study of time if you think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Roots is blown away by the line of minutes that rust my faith.
Yes, that was that's a lot of good lines that I
Yeah. I personally really like the line el cadáver del minuto que pasó,
yeah.
like the corpse of the minute that passed, that
Yeah.
line that gets repeated. Because even though the minute at one moment was alive and we
Yes.
experienced it, it's now a cadaver. And it means, at least to me, metaphorically, that it remains there, It's still in existence, but now no longer alive. And it's a really cool representation of the passage of time.
Yeah, this is the thing again. That he's always pursuing the minute that passed instead of being there for the life moment, right? That
Right.
you're saying and cherish the life seconds that he has. But nope, I don't know. We all been there probably a certain time. I think we all can relate a little bit to this, right? And just to keep with time, because I know.
Well,
that's what I
just
did.
as to give it like a name,
Mhm.
the thing that we see right now on the screen, that section where minutes starts,
Oh, yeah.
the word minutes starts the line. That's actually a poetic technique called anaphora.
Mhm.
So if you've never heard of it before, this is what it actually is. It's the repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of a line, anaphora.
It's a good technique.
Yeah.
And to continue, let's see what we have. So here's a photo I took. Again, Renaissance Fair. It's a cool place to. Last time I went, I had a lot of great shots because again, everybody's on their thing and dressed up. So I really like going there and going this month as well. But again, so with this photo, I wanted to introduce this new thing for the class. Portrait. Okay. So a portrait is a portrayal of a person, usually showing the person's face, but not always. And keep that in mind. Okay. A portrait can be a painting, a photograph, an ink drawing, a sculpture, or even a description in words or in film, right? Portrait is a term often used when talking about artwork. Go to an art museum, especially ones that have historical collections, and you'll likely see many portraits hanging on the walls. Formal portraits were commissioned by wealthy people throughout history, mostly church. Formal portraits were commissioned by wealthy people throughout history. A portrait can also be written description of someone's appearance or character. If you describe your mom in such a detail that everyone can imagine what she's like, you have created a portrait of her, right? One last thing, you can create a portrait of sounds, the feelings, the smells, the ideas, or something. Like in this case, he kind of created a portrait of time, right? So it's not a person. So keep that in mind. We're talking about portraits. En español, como le estaba diciendo, esta foto la tomé en la Renaissance Fair y como les digo, me gusta mucho ir ahí porque pues todos están vestidos, el ambiente está perfecto para tomar fotos. ¿Ok? Y el elemento que vamos a enseñar ahora es retrato. Un retrato es una representación de una persona que generalmente muestra el rostro de la persona, pero no siempre. Y póngalo esto, no siempre. Un retrato puede ser una pintura, una fotografía, un dibujo a tinta, una escultura o incluso una descripción en palabras de una película, perdón. Retratos es un término que se utiliza a menudo cuando se habla de obras de arte. Vaya a un museo de arte, especialmente uno que tenga una colección histórica, y probablemente verá muchos retratos colgados en la pared. Los retratos formales fueron encargados por personas adineradas a lo largo de la historia, y un retrato también puede ser una descripción escrita de la apariencia o el carácter de alguien. Si describe a su mamá con tanto detalle que todos pueden imaginarla como es, habrá creado un retrato de ella. Una última cosa, puede crear un retrato de un sonido, un retrato de sentimientos o olores o ideas o algo. En este caso, por ejemplo, Arjona escribió casi un retrato del tiempo, si se dan cuenta. Da muchas especificaciones, muchos detalles de cómo es el tiempo, especialmente para él, para la persona a la que está tratando la canción.
El
Okay, any
angustiado.
questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta, Sara?
No, but that is a
Okay.
good point, right? That a portrait isn't always a
Mhm.
person. It can be of an idea, of an
Mm.
object, or some other element. Like Abraham said, the song Minutos es un retrato del tiempo, y el retrato específico del angustiado.
Exacto. Es como toda la perspectiva, ¿verdad? ¿Quién la está describiendo? Por
Mm.
ejemplo, yo puedo escribir a mi mamá como una persona amable, que me ama, bla, bla, y otra persona puede decir, oh, no, esta señora es una chismosa, bla, bla, bla. So it depends who's speaking, right? Who's
Yeah.
describing the object or the idea or the concept or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's all about perspective.
Exactly. Depende del lente, ¿verdad? Como esta clase, lente. So today we're gonna talk about this photographer, Philip Halsman. So here is, his glory. So today we're gonna go, vamos a hablar de Philip Halsman. So aquí está el retrato de él. Esta es la persona de la que vamos a hablar, su fotógrafo. Okay. So without further ado, let's talk about this person. So born May 2nd, 1906 in Riga, in the part of the Russian Empire, which later became Latvia, died June 25th, 1979, age 73 years. Nueva York, State New York, right? Nació el 2 de mayo de 1906 en Riga, en la parte del Imperio Ruso que más tarde se convirtió en Lituania. Falleció el 25 de junio de 1979, tenía 73 años, falleció en Nueva York, Nueva York. Okay. So Haslam left Austria for France, began contributing photographs to fashion magazines such as Vogue, and soon gained a reputation as one of the best portrait photographers in France, renowned for his images that were sharp rather than in soft focus, as was often used, and closely cropped. When France was invaded by Germany, Amsland fled to Marseille. He eventually managed to obtain a USA visa, aided by the family friend. And again, we have an operation here. Albert Einstein helped this fool. He helped this guy get a visa. So cool. Albert Einstein, cool. Okay. Amsland dejó Austria para ir a Francia. Comenzó a colaborar con fotografías para revistas de moda como Vogue, y pronto se ganó reputación de ser uno de los mejores fotógrafos de retratos de Francia, famoso por sus imágenes nítidas en lugar de suavemente enfocadas con frecuencia, como se como se utilizaba en ese tiempo, y muy recortadas. Cuando Francia fue invadida por Alemania, Amsland huyó a Marsella. Finalmente logró obtener una visa estadounidense, perdón, con la ayuda de un amigo de la familia. ¿Y su amigo? ¿Quién creen que era? Albert Einstein. Wow, good friends. Okay, to continue. In 52, Amsland said, after an arduous session photographing the Ford automobile family to celebrate the company's 50th anniversary, as he relaxed with a drink offered by Mrs. Edsel Ford, the photographer was shocked to hear himself asking if she could jump for his camera. With high heels, she asked, but she gave it a try. One shot after which her daughter-in-law, Mrs. Henry Ford II, wanted to jump too. Okay. En 1952, dijo Amsland, después de una ardua sesión de fotografía a la familia de automóviles Ford para celebrar el 50 aniversario de la compañía, mientras se relajaba con una bebida ofrecida por la señora Edsel Ford, el fotógrafo se sorprendió al oírse a sí mismo preguntar si ella saltaría para su cámara. ¿Con mis tacones altos? Uf. Ella preguntó, pero lo intentó descalza y después su nuera, la señora Henry Ford II, quien saltó también. So, here are the photos of these ladies. So, here is Mrs. Edsel Ford. And again, the photos, I couldn't find the best quality. I don't know if they're better quality in terms of sharpness, but it's still great photo, right? And then we have the other lady who jumped, Mrs. Henry Ford II. So here are the two photos that he took that day. And with that, let's continue the story. For the next 6 years, Hansman ended his portrait sessions by asking sitters to jump. It is a tribute to his power of persuasion that Richard Nixon, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Judge Leonard Hand in his 80s, well, mid-80s at the time, and figures not known for spontaneity could be talked into rising to the challenge of, well, rising to the challenge, right? Hanson's pictures of politicians, celebrities, scientists, and other luminaries appeared on the cover of Life magazine, which is a huge deal, like back in the day. A record 101 times. That's a lot. He called the result pictures his hobby. And Philip Hansman's Jump book, a collection published in 1959, he claimed in the Mock Academy text that they were studies in jumpology. That's the term he used for it. Durante los siguientes 6 años, Hansman finalizó sus sesiones de retratos pidiéndole a los modelos que saltaran. Es un tributo a su poder de persuasión que Richard Nixon, el duque y la duquesa de Windsor y el juez Leonard Hand, que en ese momento tenía alrededor de 80 años, y otras figuras no conocidas por su espontaneidad, pudieran estar a la altura del desafío. Bueno, a la altura del desafío. Pum, pum, pum. La fotografía de Hanslet de políticos, celebridades, científicos y otras luminarias aparecieron en la portada de la revista Life, que es una revista gigante, o era más bien, un récord de 101 veces. Llamó a las imágenes resultantes su hobby. Oh. Y en el Jump Book de Philip Hansman, una colección publicada en 1959, afirmó en el texto simulando y académico que era el estudio de brincología. Así es como le llamó a su técnica o su movimiento de fotografía. Brincología. Y aquí está el resultado. So here are a couple more photos. So, as you can see, here is Marilyn Monroe. Then we have the famous photo of Dali. I mean, who hasn't seen that one, right? I didn't know he was the same photographer, but pretty cool. Then we have Donald O'Connor. You can see a tripod here or something. Then we
up.
have Jackie Gleason. That's a pretty cool one. Then we have Richard Nixon. So the idea of having people jump for the camera can seem like a gimmick, but it is telling that jumpology shares a few syllables with psychology. As Hansman, who died in 1979, said, when you ask a person to jump, his attention is mostly directed towards the action of jumping, and the mask falls so that the real person appears. La idea que la gente salte hacia la cámara puede parecer un truco, pero es revelador que la rincología comparte algunas sílabas con la psicología, como dijo Amsland, que murió en 1979, cuando le pides a una persona que salte, su atención se dirige principalmente hacia el acto de saltar y la máscara cae, de modo que aparece la persona real. Okay. So what are your thoughts on this cool guy? ¿Qué piensan acerca de este señor? The mask falls, Casey. Nice. They are dope, Carlin says.
Yeah, as a person that has done portraiture, it is really difficult to get people to behave naturally for the camera. And, the act of taking portraits that really represent the person as we would see them in like an intimate way is hard. So to have them jump or to do some sort of silly action that makes them feel more comfortable, I think is a really cool technique to get a more natural photo as opposed to a posed photo.
Yeah, definitely. Casey?
I'm thinking of I haven't taken many like acting classes, but I learned that some of them teach to be doing something. Maybe you're juggling some coins in your hand. Any like little movement can make you relax a little bit, and your movements are not so stiff. Maybe the words that you say come out a little bit more naturally. So adding like we aren't meant to like stay still all the time. So it's more natural for us to be moving around and doing things. So I guess it's good to remember.
I think you're right when they said natural. That's the whole point of like many of photos. You're trying to capture a moment as it is. I mean, most of the time, sometimes you're not, but that's the point of portrait, right? You're trying to depict something in a way, right? And natural, it's a hard state to take, especially in photography, because people's always turning, like Luis says, or smiles, right? And I know that's for the Tokyo Drift, the movie. I haven't seen it, but I know there's this actor. It was an Asian actor who his thing was eating. Every scene he was eating something. Again, like Casey said, so just to have some type of realness to it, to have this a character do something at the time, right? And it creates this kind of different layer, right? And again, when I was doing photography for events, one thing that I like doing, especially when you have these group photos, because again, sometimes it's just the same thing, everybody just standing and all kind of boring. I will tell switch, and everyone will run to the other side and switch, and I will capture the photo when people is trying to rush to the other side of the basically it's a bride or somebody, everybody's moving to the other side, and it's a total mayhem, but it captures so many things at the moment that wouldn't happen other ways. So I really like that technique, like saying switch, or in this case, jump, right? It's the action that helps, right? To release that tension, I guess. Especially when you're talking about these many characters that he took photos of, like politicians and things that are not usually depicted in that kind of way. They was trying to be serious and respected, right? So you have this guard to portray yourself in a certain way. By doing this, you kind of let a different side of you out, right? And Neri says it was a welcome change as people looked so serious when taking pictures back then. And candid is kind. Nice, Eric. Yeah, I love candid shots. Okay, let's move on because we have some more stuff to cover. But again, thank you for this photographer. And I have examples, and these ones I'm gonna show in my computer. I think I'm gonna try to do that. Let's see if it works. For these, I chose this photo to show you. It's a photo I took because we're talking about time and movement. So I chose this photo because I want you to think about motion in a different way, right? Here we have this shot of multiple dolphins. Como está diciendo, tenemos esta foto que tomé y les quiero enseñar cosas que normalmente no tomamos en cuenta acerca del movimiento de cosas. So, tomé esta foto de los delfines, and as you can see, there's many things happening here. And I wanted to show a couple of things. So, to break down some type of motion, I will always think what's starting the motion? What's starting the sequence of events, like Julie Rico said with the horse? What is the first step the horse took to take this leap or something? In this case, this is coming out of the water, right? So it's the setting up of the motion, right? So when you're taking photos, think about that. What's setting up these cause of events? Like what's starting, right? Then we have things in the maximum, right? Like the crest of the motion, right? That this is where the maximum height is gonna be, and it's frozen in time, right? This, right? And then we have where the motion ends, right? It's ending the motion, right? Steeping. And finally, you're gonna stop seeing the dolphin, right? So always think about these things. What's starting? When is the maximum? What is the basically where's the drama in the photo, right? Sometimes you want to capture that, or where is the ending of the motion, right? Especially when you're talking about photography, because you only have one shot, right? Which one you want to take photos of? You want to take photos of the beginning of the action, the hype of the action, or the ending of the action, right? And just to continue with this concept, let me show you more photos that I have. We have this photo. This photo I took, and as you can see, this is gonna set some type of motion that's gonna be here, right? You can see this tension in the legs. It's kind of starting, but it's not there. It's just the beginning of the motion. But there's so much tension that hasn't been unleashed in this photo. As you can see, it's the knees. I love the knees on these ones. Like, but it's still, we haven't like, right? The motion hasn't started yet. It's like, ready? Right? It's kind of doing the ready motions. Aquí está apenas comenzando la acción. Okay. So this is one photo. Then we have the actual moment. This is the fly moment, right? Let's fly. So this is when you release that tension and it's in the air. It's setting. The motion set. It's no coming back. The motion has set. Right?
The look on his face too, though.
Yes. It's woo! Right? I love it. Yeah. And then we have, this is kind of in between the whole thing. You still have motion. This is going up still. It's just the back jumping of the thing, but it's not the same as when he was flying the first time, right? I mean, it's a different type of motion, right? It's a different type of feeling. I think at this point, it still feels a little safe, right? And then we have the ending, right? This is the ending of the motion. You see, not everything's done. She feels safe, right? There's not a rush on this, but it has a moment here that's different than the other ones, right? It's more calm. It's more. I guess it's when you know that you survive, right? Like, yay, I survived. All right. So these are things that you want you guys to consider when it comes to you want to take photos of something that's happening. Think about what's the first movement of this thing that's happening. What is the moment that has the most tension, or where is the ending of it? All these are valuable moments to capture, but which one do you want to take, right? Which one represents a better photo? It just depends. I mean, what you're trying to look for. Okay, then we have this photo, which again, this one is not frozen in time, as you know. We have a long exposure. And what I like about this one is we have all these people moving towards a direction, right? And some of them, you can see the motion blur, right? Except for this guy, which I like is the center, and it's more in focus, especially with the theme, right? It's about culture. And I feel this, to me, when I took the photo, it to me represented this movement of somebody leading us to a cultural place where everybody's accepted. Because again, not everybody has the same background, but it's still they respect this culture. And I feel like I felt this photo will tell us that with motion, right? Everybody's moving forward, right? Okay, and then we have a different type of exposure. This is, again, this is a training that I fixed. I'll show you how to do some of these tricks in a bit. But again, it has some of the motion here, and especially the type of angle that I decided to point the camera, right? Like we covered before, angles are important. And then we have this photo here. This also is a long exposure at night. So as you can see, like if you took a photo, a normal photo that stops time, it doesn't have the same quality. I think here it gives us the life of the city, how cars are moving, right? So it's taking a long exposure. I mean, the shutter is taking a long time to close. And by that time, the car that was here, it ends up there, right? So that's what long exposure does. It creates this recording of time. And again, nothing else is moving like physically, like things that don't move, like the bridge and stuff like that, because this isn't a tripod. Again, the only things that are moving are like the cars, but the world and things like that are more solid, take longer to be noticeable. Okay. And with the same concept, we have this. This I took at a campsite on Joshua Tree. And the way I took this one, this is me. And have a friend with a light, and the friend with this, I think was one of those glow lights that you have for parties. And he starts shaking them around to create this energy in the photo, right? So again, that's how you take this type of photos. You have a long exposure, especially when it's dark. It helps a lot because that diminishes the amount of light you let in, right? And again, with a friend or somebody, lighting things up. As you can see here, I think is the face of the person somewhere there. And with the same concept, we have, I think this one, hold on. And this one, without me, it just, we recorded somebody, it's the same light, but we go in here, 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 and here. So two people. I think somebody was doing the fire here, and I was doing here. I think. Right? So again, this is a long exposure, and with a light, you basically are recording the movement of your hand, right? With a light. Okay. Stop sharing. Done with these examples. Okay. Any questions by any chance? Sorry, I haven't checked the chat.
Yeah, the question that came up was, if blurry means movement.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it can. And that's when it would be called motion blur, when it's deliberate.
Exactly.
If you get blur in your photo, but you didn't want blur, you wanted it to be nice and sharp, then that would mean that you would need to adjust your exposure triangle, like Abraham was talking about before. It could be that you have a shutter speed that is too slow for what would be called handheld photography. Usually the lower limit in terms of handheld photography is considered to be 1/60th of a second. But that's something that you would probably not have much control over if you're using, say, like your iPhone or, a point and shoot camera. That's something that you can control with a more advanced camera that does have manual controls.
You can, but again, you have to leave it in a tripod, and especially do it at night. Like these long exposures are harder to do on the phone because they don't have the aperture. And for example, people who want to do this kind of shoots during the day, they use a filter, like the filter that you guys use for the eclipse. Is that kind of filter that doesn't let too much light in. So if you have a long exposure, it still works because that filter is not letting too much light in. So that's another way of doing it during the day. Okay, and let me continue. Any other questions before I move on to the
Another
next
thing
part?
too, if
Mhm.
you really want to invest in equipment that would work with your cell phone, they do, depending on the type of phone that you have, there are companies that make attachments for the lens on a camera, so you can get the filter that's necessary for doing longer exposures. You can get polarizing filters, which help reduce glare and also kind of boost the color blue. And there's a lot of different tools out there that in some cases are even kind of like free if you want to be kind of creative with it, like saran wrap. You can use saran wrap to get kind of like a hazy look if you wrap it tightly across the lens of your camera.
Okay,
So
yes.
yeah.
And again, like we were saying, like there's different ways of, let's say if your phone doesn't have, or you don't have the ability to take that, there's a couple of tricks that you can use to create something like that. And for that, I'm gonna show you this time. I'm gonna do this in Photoshop, and I have a couple of pictures. Let me actually stop this one there. Okay, you guys can see, we're gonna do Photoshop, and then I'm gonna give you a little advice on Snapseed, okay? This is another photo that I took for the Renaissance Fair. And a cool way to show, because again, this photo is frozen. It has the hammer, right? It has kind of a suggestion of motion, but I don't feel that has motion in this photo still. It has the action. I don't know, because the hammer is not in a place that I will feel like it requires this static. It's just frozen, I think. And to add motion, I want to show you a trick, right? So for this one, hopefully everybody can see. And let me hear from you, Luis, if you guys see or not. So here, where the background says here, you guys can see, Luis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Here you press right click and you put duplicate layer. Okay? Then it's going to ask you like a quick question like, oh, do you want this to blah, blah, blah? You say yes. Okay. What the heck happened to my rest of my stuff? I don't know. Anyways, back here. You see the mouse? Oh, here. Oh, there you go. Here you go. We have the new layer. We have two layers. We have the background. We're going to leave the background alone. And for this one, we're going to go to filters. It's all the way on the top. You guys can see, Luis, just making sure everybody can see where my hand is. There's filters.
Yes.
You press, click, then it gives you all these options, but do not bother with all of them. We're just gonna go for blur. Once you click blur, there's one that's called motion blur. You guys can see? Okay, thank you, Luis. You click motion blur. So this is telling you where you want the motion to go, see? You guys can see? And I'm gonna add more distance. So this is basically how much is gonna affect it. I'm gonna go for 200 just to exaggerate. Oh, 200, sorry, makes one more zero. There you go. You can see? Actually, let's go for 300. Maybe that's better. There you go. I want more. Ambitious. Okay, 400. That's what it's done. So it has the motion going up, right? Or down in this case. It does both things. And this time we are going to take this box over here. It's basically going to create this mask. See, Luis, everybody can see? Here you go. This one, you're going to click it. And it's going to create this white box over here, right? Once you hide the white box, make sure you click on that one. Because sometimes you're not selecting the right thing. Then you're going to click Control E. And it's going to do this. It's going to make it black, which is basically unappearing it, right? Kind of doing that. That way you have this black, right? Once you have that, you're gonna select the brush. Here, you see my mouse? See this brush? Usually I choose a brush that's soft, like an airbrush, see? And just to give you a sample how it looks like, this is the size of the brush. You make it bigger or smaller, depending. So once I have the brush, I'm making sure that the brush is on white. Because again, this whole thing is in black. So it basically it's hiding the thing that we just did. So what the white is doing is gonna show us that layer, right? So once I start doing this, I'm gonna choose the hammer. See where my brush is? oh crap. Actually, it's in the right place. Okay. See? So I'm thinking where the motion that I wanted to do, it's gonna be maybe the hand as well. I don't know. So that's how you kind of create some type of motion blur, right? And again, you can erase it the way you put it black. Maybe you want to show more of the hand. There you go. And that way we have some resemblance of motion on the hammer, right? Which I think I wanted to. And again, the more time you start cleaning it, the better it's gonna look like. But again, that's kind of you create some kind of motion blur where you don't have a photo that has it, right? Same thing with the car here. Let me just do it really fast. Duplicate layer, filter, motion blur. This time I'm gonna switch the motion to where the car is coming, right? The angle. And no, that's too much. There you go. Then again, press this one, Control E, and then with the brush on white, oops, oh, I'm gonna create this motion. The car is moving, right? So again, if you have a camera that may not have that ability or you don't wanna look too much into it, you can do something similar like this. Yes, okay. And again, the more you play with it, the more natural it's gonna look. So, but this is kind of a way you can do that. Any questions on this one, on this technique? It's basically creating motion blur. Before, after.
Yeah. And
the
so
hammer.
what Abraham is doing right now is adding motion blur. If you want to reduce blur, then that's sharpening, which is different. And there's certain limitations to sharpening a photo when it comes down to the overall quality of the original photo. But yeah. And looks like Casey's asking you to slow down the car a little bit.
Hey, speed limit.
Exactly.
Okay, let me stop this one. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, and let me share back to the lecture.
And obviously, Photoshop is, again, like we've shared before, it's not a free app. There is a downloadable version that you can download to your phone, as well as to a tablet, like an iPad or an Android tablet. And you can get a free 14-day trial, but after that, you would have to pay for the service. Snapseed, on the other hand, is free.
It's free.
Yeah, it's free 99, and you can download it on Android and iPhone as well.
Thank you, Luis.
As well as tablets too.
And here is the snap. I mean, we already show you how to do something in Photoshop. And there is another way to do something similar in Snapseed. I did it not as clean, but here is me jumping with some motion, basically background. This time it's the person is not is frozen, but this is me kind of showing speed kind of situation, right? And to do this, I'm gonna give you the YouTube video because it's gonna take longer if I was gonna cover the whole thing on this one. So you wanna check the video that's on the chat, copy and paste, and that's for Snapseed. So aquí pueden ver, pueden hacer este tipo de técnica como lo hicimos en Photoshop o en Snapseed, aquí está la técnica, okay? And this is kind of the result that you're kind of looking for that kind of thing, okay? So before, again, it's on the chat, está en el chat, so véanlo, okay? So the most important and fun part for you guys, homework. I know you guys all love homework. Why not? Who doesn't? So homework, create a portrait of time using photography. Freeze time, I mean, motion blur, or do something with editing, like I show you in Photoshop, right? Then write a poem of time. Give us a portrait of time with poetry, okay? Not as long, it doesn't have to be as long as Ricardo Arjona, but definitely try something. See what your photo calls for, and you will figure that out, okay? So tarea, Crea un retrato del tiempo usando fotografía. Congela el tiempo disparando la fotografía. Desenfoque de movimiento o editar las fotografías como les enseñamos. Luego escriban un poema del tiempo. Okay. So with that, any questions so far? Again, you can use somebody like motion. Think about what the starting of the motion is, or the ending of the motion is, or things that had to do with time, right? Think about time. And again, this is up to you. It's not me to tell you how you think about time. So it's gonna be your challenge. How do I portray time using these techniques, right?
Mhm.
And any questions before I give you extra? Luis, you didn't expect that, huh?
No questions, but again, this is one of those exercises where you can either go out and create
Mhm.
a photo, or you can go through your previous photos that you've taken and work from there.
Yeah.
So you have those two options.
And
Um,
definitely don't use people's photos, use your own photos. Around copyrights. Always think about who's the OG who created the photo. So
yeah.
you can use a photo that you have taken before. I don't mind about that, but it's better if you guys go and try. Especially nowadays, we all have phones. Go ahead and try, experiment. It doesn't have to be great. I mean, we always try things, and that's the point. So we need to take a picture. Yeah, if you want to. If no, like Luis said, you have an old photo you think it can represent time, go for it and create a poem. But I will guess try a couple of times with your phone, or again, as a friend to go out and take photos. That's always fun. I have done that a lot of times, and buy them a boba or a drink afterwards, because this is gonna take time. If you want to go out and try different things and experiment, have fun. It's not just torturing yourself, even though I like that as well. Okay. And again, as I promised, I have extra. So here is a photo I wanted to talk about. And you will think, what's going on? I might not give you the whole details. I maybe copy and paste on the chat, but let me copy and paste in the chat.
Abraham, excuse me, before you continue, there was a section at the top that said instructions on how to do this photo. Is there like a website or what is it?
Oh, well, I posted on the chat, copy and paste in the chat. It's a link on YouTube. That's for a Snapseed.
That shows
if no,
us
you
how
can
to
watch
do
the
this?
video. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, again, we're gonna post this YouTube video later, the whole class, as well as I'll put a link on the chat that's basically giving you how to do it in Snapseed, like this type of thing.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
This I did it fully on the phone again.
Gracias.
Fully on the phone.
I just put the YouTube link on the chat as well. Again. Okay. So.
And this one I might, just because we run out of time, might not give you the whole thing, the whole enchilada, but here, even though you might not think about it, this is the first photo of a person. Yes, sir. And I'll try to copy and paste the info in the chat in a bit, but I'm gonna explain it a little bit. So why is this the first photo of the person? What is the buildings and things like that? Well, back in the day, there were the development of photos, right? And these photos will take forever to exposure. Like to have a photo, it's like the shutter speed, right? It will take too long for a person to be captured in camera. Here was people moving around, but because they were moving and it was a long exposure, they were not able to capture the amount of people who were walking on the street, except because this was a different development of photography. It still was slow, but not that slow as the previous ones that will take hours. This was still slow, but they were able to capture. Here we go. Here we have a person that's taking a shoe shine. And because they were steady in the same spot, they were able to capture them in this long exposure. So that's the magic, right? It's like, this is the shoe shiner here probably, and here's the person taking the shoe shine, right? So this is the first photograph of a person. Because again, they weren't able to take these photos before because people were moving too much. And so again, they were here in the corner over here. This is just a crop of the image. But yep. And let me post this. It has more information of the photo. Again, if you don't read Spanish and English, just read the other stuff. Because I have it in Spanish and English. That's why you probably. Yeah, believe it or not, I was shocked when I found out that what is the first person in a photograph? It's not as dramatic, but once you know the story behind it, I like it. And again, this is talking about time where we're talking about this. This is 8 seconds maybe. So the photo we see here with these old people is probably half an hour or something like that. So it's a long, long exposure.
I bet you that photo of the dancer is probably closer to like 4 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know. Depends on because again, the dancer has to do all these movements and then it has to do a couple of seconds standing there without moving to create this sharpness at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
A
I'm
lot
gonna
of body
say,
control, that's for sure.
yeah, it's really masterful. Like I know they did a lot of times, and the person who did this is not their first round.
Yeah.
But guys, go and try it. Excellent. And again, any questions? Also on the mail, and again, check your homework. I'm gonna repeat the homework just in case. I'll tell you the homework again. Homework, hey, crap, somewhere there. Create a portrait of time using photography, freeze time, motion blur, or some photo editing that will help you tell the story of time, right? Then write a poem on the same subject, right? Think about it. And then tarea, creen un retrato del tiempo usando fotografía, congelando el tiempo, desenfoque de movimiento o editar las fotos como les enseñamos para, bueno, lo que más les sirva para demostrar un retrato del tiempo. Y luego escriban un poema acerca de eso. Again, no tiene que ser un poema muy largo como el de Ricardo Arjona, puede ser corto. Again, doesn't have to be a long poem like Ricardo Arjona's, but go for it, try it, see what's up. I want to see your concepts. And here's another one. Sorry, my bad. This is the type of photography. The daguerreotype. This is the photo. The inventor created this. This is how the photo was taken. Here's the processes, and here's the actual camera. This is how cameras used to look like, people. So we have come a long way.
Indeed.
Indeed. Daguerreotype process. So there you go. And again, that was some extra that I found during the time.
All right. Well, again, just for the sake of time, Abraham
Nice.
will be, sharing some of this extra information, obviously, on our Google class. The original handout that I posted is available for you to download. We do hope that you have a lot of fun creating photos during the rest of the week and hopefully crafting a poem that goes along with it. For everybody watching on our live streams, you're obviously welcome to ask questions later. When it gets posted to our YouTube channel, we'll try to also answer questions there in the comments. And for those of you fully enrolled in the class, we obviously are available to answer questions during the week. If you have, any questions about how to really get the photo that you're looking for. We also want to remind everybody that you are now able to start submitting work to the zine to be potentially published. So visit distillarts.org/Conchas y Café zine to find the link for uploading your work to Submittable. It's free to submit, and those of you who appear in the zine, whose work appears in the zine, will get a free copy of the published version as well. So definitely take advantage of that. The last day to submit is May 7th, which is the last day of this class. Next week, we'll obviously have our usual workshopping session. And then we have one more lesson that I'll be teaching. And after that, we'll give you a couple more weeks to finalize your work and get any questions answered that you might have. So thank you again, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the lesson. I'll be ending the live streams now, but I do hope that you all have a great week, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night, peoples.